One of the most recurring themes in my personal growth journey has been this fear of being or being seen to be narcissistic or arrogant, despite being the least confident, shyest child you can imagine. And it all started with a single sentence when I was 8. So when I was 8 years old, one of the boys in my year would keep telling me, "You think you're brilliant, you think you're brilliant," which baffled me because, as I say, I certainly didn't feel that. Though maybe I was still connected to something greater than my small boy self. But it did sow the seed of self-doubt and this not wanting to be seen, to think of myself in this way. And so a fear of speaking up, a fear of showing who I really was. I'd always had a very loving, nurturing upbringing to that point at home and at school. And so this was like kind of like a wake-up call. If I was too much myself or spoke too much, so I started mumbling. It was I was staying small, literally and physically. I was very little until really 14, 15. So staying small to try and preserve this. Oh, he's so cute, and to be loved. Um, to stay safe, and of course, it didn't work because I did then suffer bullying anyway. I suppose partly for those times when my lack of filters. My daughter will tell you I have no filters, and maybe those things, um, you know, projecting out and receive the bullying that from people who are also insecure. And so I was absorbing other people's energy as well, very sensitive. But speaking of no filters, I remember when I was about 13, 14, and I was with a group of boys, and I was convinced that this girl that we knew liked this boy, and it turned out that another boy who was actually in that group was going out with this girl. Now, whether or not I saw something true, I don't know, but either way, I was mortified when I found out, and it just reinforced this. I internalized this, yeah, being silent. And much later in life, I was teaching English in Spain, and I used this word nefarious, and I got a funny look from one of my fellow native teachers who wondered what I was talking about. And I wasn't trying to be pretentious. I just wanted to use to be precise. I had a privilege, yes, of a good education, but I also was curious and read a lot. And when I use a word, I don't want, if I want to say wrong, I'll say wrong, but I wanted to say nefarious. But again, it reinforced, it touched an old wound um, of don't stand out, you know. So all these stories, they point to this kind of innate need to speak out, to be someone, um, with the conflict of being terrified of doing so, because when you do, you have those consequences. And that led to what I've only relatively recently really identified as what you'd call rejection wounds, which, the fear of rejection leads to silence. It leads to not putting yourself out there. And being very sensitive can mean that you lack the sovereignty of who you really are, and the confidence. Now, I had quite a religious upbringing, and while I'm now more spiritual than religious. It was a fertile ground for my calling and finding my voice as well. It started really when I was doing my confirmation, and I would attend these scripture groups, and because I'd also studied, our religious education at school was one of my best subjects, and I knew a lot, and I used to love reading about Jesus, and so he was my friend, and still is. And anyway, so I found myself feeling the urge to speak up, and to my slight surprise, people listened and people valued my contributions, and most of them were much older than me. I was certainly the youngest there. So that was interesting. It was the first kind of glimpse. It also, during that time, and I was also um, doing catechism for children, the little ones in the parish, which I loved, and the combination of those things led to two callings. I always joke that I had two callings in life, from an early age. One to be a father, and the other to be a father, but the other sort, the ordained kind. In the end, the biological urge kind of won, and I have a wonderful daughter who's now grown up, 25 years old. And I also learned to speak up despite fear. And one of the ways I did that was reading and learning to get up on the lectern there to speak to the congregation. And I would read with expression, and I would see the faces of people responding to my words. So it was my first experience of public speaking, 14, 15. It was terrifying, but it was groundbreaking as well. So as I got older, that urge to speak up grew and grew, and to an extent that was it increased that inner conflict, because I still had those moments, that lack of confidence, and being silenced, and feeling the need to be silent. But it grew and grew during my teenage years, until eventually I would, for example, I would go to these pro-European meetings in my town, Guildford, my hometown, and in London, and speak to some quite senior political figures about what I felt. I grew up as a European. I wanted to have more engagement with Europe, and this is not a political issue. It's a human issue. It's about working together to share this beautiful planet, and the European Union is just this way of doing that. And what we're going through at the moment, I won't go into politics now, but it's a return to xenophobia, and the opposite of all that, really. But that this voice that was always that urge, that need to speak up, became stronger than the fear. Yes, I was absolutely bricking myself, but I got the questions out. So what I want to get to in this video is, we all have that inner voice, but we also have other voices from outside and inside, and most of them are really loud, and they're from people who want to control you, or your own inner critic. And you've really got to tune out those other voices, both outside from your programming and from society, and those voices inside as well that say you're not good enough, or no one wants to listen. This whole channel is about me overcoming that. I've tried a bit on social media over the years, but this is much more direct, and gives me a chance to really dive a bit more into depth, rather than the superficial, low attention span of social media. So as I say, what I call, but that inner voice, that inner guidance, I call tuning into your soul's own signal, SOS. Save Our Souls was this cry out, and I feel like it's kind of reframing that to a cry from our souls to us, so that we can live our best life and speak our truth and be happy with who we really are, with who we are and how we express ourselves in this world. And to do that, as I say, we need to quieten those voices and listen out for that much more subtle, that doesn't need to insist, doesn't need to assert. This is not an assertion based universe, it's an attraction based universe, and you attract by being calm and confident in your own truth. And that is magnetic. When we come across people who aren't shouting, they just emit this calm peace that attracts you to them naturally without needing to convince you. Truth doesn't need to convince you, you just know it. So I hope something of this will resonate with you. And the other thing that has really helped me is this process of transforming that inner critic, which is, criticizing you for speaking up, and then the proof that you were wrong in the reaction of other people, whereas actually you're projecting the insecurity. So although you've had this conflict, as I say, you have the urge to speak up, but you also have this insecurity that, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm ridiculed? And that fear gets that response of ridicule. And I know very well, as I say, through my teens especially, but throughout my life to an extent, especially when, talking about my dreams to help millions of people. Oh, why? There's delusions of grandeur. It's this, that, and the other. It's, you don't need to think so big. Be realistic. All these things. Now, not everyone has that kind of dream to help millions, or to have a global impact. But maybe that is mine. Maybe you're seeing this because this is my intention, to get this message out, to tell my story of overcoming this, and to tell you that everyone needs to hear your voice as well. And even if they don't, your voice matters, you matter. And if we can do what I've managed to do, it keeps coming back, I must admit. Though for years I've managed to transform the inner critic into my inner coach. I did that by changing the gender. So it wasn't this aggressive male energy, it was this nurturing female energy. And that kind of also kicked off my journey of balancing masculine and feminine energy, whilst all being one energy really. But our mental constructs in this dual material reality need some sort of structure to help us keep in balance. I'll be talking about energy in the third video in the series, but for now, those three things: tune out those external voices, tune into your soul's own signal, and transform the inner critic into your inner coach, so that you can express yourself, who you are. You are worth it. Everything is working out for you. So that's my three takeaways for my story and my journey of healing. And I hope you find some nuggets in there, because that's why I'm doing this, clearly. So I will see you next time. Please like and subscribe, and that helps me grow this new channel. Thank you. The soil which gave birth to... Okay, the soil that gave birth